Hello everyone. I've been getting a lot of questions about how I use these Bitmoji virtual classrooms within Outschool, so I wanted to take a minute and just kind of give you a little bit of a virtual tour around my classroom and explain a little bit more about what exactly I'm doing. So one thing to clarify before I start clicking around and showing you these different things is that Bitmoji virtual classrooms are not the same thing as Google Classrooms. Outschool specifically asks us not to use Google Classrooms in our flexible schedule classes. There are a few different reasons for this. One is that a lot of times parents don't like to have to go to a different website during class, and another reason is just for the safety of our students, right? If you require a login, the Outschool support team isn't going to be able to check it out. So they want to make sure everybody's staying safe, everybody's comfortable, everybody's doing what they should be doing. So for that reason, they ask us to keep all of our communication within the Outschool classroom. These virtual Bitmoji classrooms are allowed though, so they don't require any kind of a separate login for your students. They don't need to have a Google account. And all of the resources that they're going to be clicking on within this classroom are resources that I would have already been giving them. It's just that otherwise I give it to them in the Outschool classroom by giving them a bunch of links. And this way just makes it look a little bit nicer and it's a little bit more interactive for them. So this is my Bitmoji classroom for Rock and Roll, History of Rock and Roll Week 5. I always tell my students on the little board here, I always tell them what week we're in, so if for some reason I were to give them the incorrect link, they would know that the link was incorrect. If it says welcome to week 3, for example, they're going to know that that's not quite right, something has been messed up. And I also just give them this reminder to turn in their comprehension questions by 5 p.m. on Friday. I feel like giving them a reminder on that is a great thing. It just helps us all know when things are due, that type of stuff. So to begin, I guess I'll show you kind of the must-haves within my classroom. So I host all of my materials, my packets, and all of that good stuff within Google Drive. This is a Google Drive folder here. Sometimes I have people ask me how my students know where all of these icons are going to lead them. There's a few different ways that they know. So one is that I have this video that I'm not going to let play, but I'll show off here just for a moment. This video tells them what all of those icons mean, what they can find when they click on those icons. I give this to them every week. It sits behind this blackboard here, and it also is posted into my classroom in the first week. So that's how they know what the different icons mean. Now, Google Drive is just a link to my Google Drive folder, so here's what it would look like. For my students, it links them right into this Flex folder. All of my video lectures are also posted here in addition to in a YouTube playlist. If for any reason YouTube were to crash or go down or something, that would save me there. It would make sure they still had access to my video lectures. And then there are week 5 slides. I use Loom to record, so they have access to all of those slides that I'm using during class. And then, of course, our week 5 packet is also in here. In this packet, I pretty much summarize everything that we talk about. I also give them tons and tons of extra links, extra resources. Pretty much anything that I use to create the class for that week goes into this packet. I don't want anybody to accuse me of plagiarism ever, so I make sure to cite all of my sources appropriately. And then I also link their comprehension questions in the week 5 packet. So after they look at that stuff, the next place most of them probably go is to their YouTube playlist. So if you click on this YouTube playlist here, this is the playlist for my class. So this has all of my video lectures. Those are these ones right here. Those are the video lectures. Additionally, I like to give extra videos in my YouTube playlist, either listening examples or in the case of this one, I've linked in a crash course U.S. history. Instead of trying to summarize the 1960s for my students, I decided I would go ahead, let somebody else do it, and receive the ad revenue from having it linked into the playlist. So here's what this looks like. Now after this slide, so this is Rock and Roll 5.4. 5.4, I'll open it for you. 5.4 is usually my comprehension questions. Here they are. The reason why I include my comprehension questions in their own slide is for accessibility purposes. I didn't used to read my comprehension questions aloud. That was never something I considered until I had a student whose parent reached out to me and asked me if I would be able to give an audio version of the comprehension questions for various reasons. I don't remember what it was. It doesn't matter, but I think giving these comprehension questions in this capacity definitely increases your accessibility for your students. So I like to include comprehension questions read aloud for that particular reason. I also then am able to very easily tell them anything that's optional for you to watch this week is located after your comprehension question. So for example, I've got a good overview of the civil rights movement and also a good overview of the Cold War here for my students if they want to learn more about those things. And then I also included some biographies of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. Week 5 is about politics and popular music. So that's why we've got these types of concepts kind of popping up in our class. Now, the next thing that most of my students probably go for is our listening playlist. So I teach music classes, so that means we have a lot of stuff to listen to. A lot of this is optional, and some of them are kind of recommended but not required. Regardless, I want to give my kids a lot of opportunities to fully immerse themselves and listen to all of this stuff. So here are some of the pieces that we're listening to this week. Some of them are kind of more modern versions of these songs, like this Lift Every Voice and Sing. Choral version is pretty recent, as is the John Legend version, actually. Some of them are a little bit older as well. You can see we've got Aretha Franklin from 1967. Pretty much anything that I think will fit into kind of the theme of the week, I throw into this listening playlist and then give my students the opportunity to listen to it. Now, after that, those are kind of our main things. So, our Google Drive folder here, our YouTube playlist, our listening playlist, the instructions on what to do within the classroom, those are all kind of the main components that I need to include. Everything else is starting to become optional. So one thing I like to include, if you click on my coffee cup, we go to a coffee GIF. I just think this is funny. I include it almost every week. If it'll load, you'll be able to see it. There it is. It just makes me laugh, and I feel like, students enjoy having these weird little things in their classroom, so I include that. I also include, if they click on me, it'll go to this intro classroom video. This is me just saying who I am, what I do, where I live, what animals I have, all of those types of things, just in case they need a refresher on that. I also then, you'll see all of these pictures back here. So this is Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., then Joan Baez, Nina Simone, let's see, Pete Seeger, Bob Dylan, and Creedence Clearwater Revival. For this particular week, and for most weeks involving my rock and roll history class, my students are asked to further research somebody that we talk about and provide a biography, to write out a biography, listen to some of their music, kind of do some independent study type of things. So all of these portraits actually link to a biography. So I'll pull up Nina Simone's here. So it links to her biography. So this biography is where they can kind of get their first start into who these different people are, tells us a little bit about what their music style is, and that just gives them the first start for those questions. And I tell them in their comprehension questions, like, look at the portrait in your virtual classroom, and that helps them out for that. As far as these two are concerned, these are not actually like required components, but I think if we're talking about politics and popular music, and I mention people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, I feel like it's my responsibility to help my students understand who these people are and why I'm talking to them about them. So that's the reason why I've included their biographies. I just think it's important. Let's see. Finally, the last thing I guess that we have to look at is this Leave Me a Note board. So this links out to my Google Jamboard. The Google Jamboard is just fun. It gives them an opportunity to leave me notes if they want to. This is not something most of my students access. I get it a lot with my younger kids. My 8 to 12 crowd tend to like these. Otherwise, my teenagers don't usually access them. But if they wanted to, they would be able to write a note, and save it and be able to post this into the classroom there. You can see that's an option. They can also share pictures and stuff, so that's fun for them sometimes not so much. Again, a lot of this just kind of depends on your students. So that is my Google Virtual Classroom. Again, this is not the same thing as Google Classrooms. Outschool does not allow us to use Google Classrooms, but I do think it's kind of a fun way for my students to have access to all of their different links, and it really kind of just lets me post them all in one place as opposed to just giving them tons and tons of links within the Outschool Classroom, which I think just gets a little overwhelming visually. I hope that this was helpful. I hope this showed you a little bit more about how you could use these Bitmoji virtual classrooms. I will link to the video where I explain a little bit about how I create these virtual classrooms, and I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.